Have you ever wondered if the story you've been told about the Catholic Church is the full truth? Most of us have heard that it all started with Peter, the apostle of Jesus, who became the rock on which the church was built. But what if I told you that the real story is far more complex, and in some ways, even contradictory? Think about this. A small group of persecuted believers in the heart of the Roman Empire, a world of pagan gods, political turmoil, and relentless oppression. Somehow, they didn't just survive. They laid the foundation for one of the most powerful institutions in history. But was this rise the result of faith alone, or something much more human? Over the centuries, decisions were made, doctrines were debated, and power shifted hands. These choices didn't always reflect the teachings of Jesus. They often reflected the ambitions of the people involved. What if the church's beginnings weren't as divine as we've been led to believe? Today, we're uncovering the hidden truths about the Catholic Church, from secret meetings in the shadows of persecution to the councils that shaped its doctrines. This story isn't just about faith, it's about power, strategy, and survival. What you're about to learn could change how you see not just the church, but history itself. Ready to dive in? Setting the historical stage. Imagine the Roman Empire in the 1st century, a vast, sprawling world ruled by emperors and steeped in the worship of countless gods. This was a time of immense political power, social inequality, and relentless persecution of those who dared to defy the norms. It was into this hostile environment that the first followers of Jesus emerged, forming a small and vulnerable community bound together by faith and hope. These early Christians weren't powerful leaders or influential elites. They were fishermen, tax collectors, and outcasts. They gathered in secret, in homes or catacombs, to avoid detection by Roman authorities. To be a Christian meant risking everything: your livelihood, your family, and even your life. In this world, faith wasn't just a belief, it was a matter of survival. But here's the question: how did this marginalized group, constantly on the brink of extinction, rise to become the foundation of one of the most influential institutions in human history? The Catholic Church didn't appear overnight. It wasn't the product of a single moment or a single individual. Instead, it was the result of decades, centuries, even of hard-fought decisions, strategic alliances, and relentless determination. Let's take a closer look at the role of Peter, often called the rock of the church. Peter is widely seen as the first pope, but was this his intention? When Jesus said, "Upon this rock, I will build my church," what did he really mean? Was Peter meant to create an institution, or was his role reinterpreted later to justify the growing power of the church? And here's something you may not know. The term Catholic, meaning universal, didn't even exist in Peter's time. It wasn't used until decades later, long after the apostles were gone. This tells us that the early Christian movement wasn't a unified organization. It was a diverse and scattered group, with different traditions and beliefs struggling to survive in the shadow of Roman oppression. So how did they go from hunted outcasts to the architects of a global faith? The answer lies in their resilience, their ability to adapt, and the decisions they made along the way. These decisions weren't always driven purely by faith. They were often shaped by the harsh realities of the world they lived in. As we uncover this history, we'll see how their courage and sacrifice laid the groundwork for a movement that would change the world forever. What happens next will reveal the incredible journey of a faith that refused to be extinguished. The role of Peter in the birth of the church. Let's focus on Peter, a man who is often called the cornerstone of the Catholic Church. When Jesus said, "You are Peter, and upon this rock I will build my church," those words became one of the most quoted lines in Christian history. But here's the question: what did Jesus actually mean by church? Was it an institution like the Catholic Church we know today? Or was it something entirely different? A community of believers bound by faith? Peter is often considered the first pope, the spiritual leader who laid the foundation for the church. But if we examine the historical record, things become less clear. In the Bible, Peter is a prominent figure, but he's not portrayed as the leader of a formal organization. In fact, the book of Acts shows that leadership in the early Christian movement was more collaborative. Take the Council of Jerusalem. For example, this was a key moment in early Christianity. Yet it wasn't Peter who presided over the council. It was James, the brother of Jesus, who played a central role. So, how did Peter's legacy grow into the idea of the papacy? The answer lies in tradition, interpretation, and the power of storytelling. Over time, the narrative of Peter as the rock was emphasized and expanded to establish Rome's authority as the center of the church. Rome, as the capital of the empire, was a city of unparalleled influence. By tying Peter to Rome, early church leaders created a powerful link between spiritual and political authority. But here's something surprising. The term Catholic, meaning universal, didn't emerge until years after Peter's death. It was first used by Ignatius of Antioch in the early 2nd century to describe the Christian community. This shows that the church's identity was still evolving long after the apostles were gone. What's even more fascinating is that the early Christian movement wasn't a unified entity. It was a collection of diverse groups, each interpreting the teachings of Jesus in their own way. This diversity led to debates, disagreements, and even conflicts among believers. The idea of a single, universal church came later, as leaders sought to bring order and unity to a fragmented movement. But this unity came at a cost. Difficult decisions were made, and some teachings and traditions were sidelined in favor of creating a cohesive narrative. Were these choices made out of faith, or were they driven by a desire for control and power? This question lies at the heart of the church's story. As we continue, we'll explore how these early struggles and decisions shaped the church's identity. The story of Peter and the birth of the church isn't just about faith, it's about power, legacy, and the human desire to create something lasting. What happened next would solidify the church's foundation and forever change the course of history. Constantine and the strategy of power. In the 4th century, everything changed. Christianity, once a persecuted faith practiced in secret, began to rise to prominence. At the center of this transformation was a man whose name echoes through history, Constantine the Great. But here's the twist. Constantine's embrace of Christianity wasn't purely an act of faith. It was a calculated strategy to unite a divided empire. When Constantine issued the Edict of Milan in 313 AD, legalizing Christianity and ending centuries of persecution, it seemed like a miraculous turn of events. For Christians, this was a moment of triumph. No longer would they have to worship in hiding or fear execution for their beliefs. But Constantine's motivations went far beyond religious tolerance. At this time, the Roman Empire was fractured by political instability, economic troubles, and cultural divisions. Constantine saw Christianity as a tool, not just to unify the empire, but to strengthen his own rule. A single, cohesive faith could bring order to a fragmented society. By aligning himself with the Christian God, Constantine not only gained the loyalty of the growing Christian population, but also positioned himself as a divinely chosen leader. But here's where the story gets even more intriguing. Constantine didn't stop at legalizing Christianity. In 325 AD, he called the Council of Nicaea, one of the most pivotal events in church history. This wasn't a simple theological discussion. It was a high-stakes meeting to settle disputes that threatened to tear the faith apart. The central debate? The nature of Jesus Christ. Was he fully divine, fully human, or something in between? These questions weren't just about theology, they were about control. A unified doctrine was essential for a unified empire. Constantine, though not a theologian, played a significant role in guiding the council's decisions. His aim was clear: create a stable faith that could serve as the backbone of his rule. The result was the Nicene Creed, a declaration of belief that remains central to Christianity today. But unity came at a cost. Those who disagreed with the council's decisions were labeled heretics, exiled, or even persecuted. The same faith that had once been hunted by the Romans now turned on its own dissenters. And what about Constantine himself? While he officially embraced Christianity, his actions raised questions. He continued many pagan practices and wasn't baptized until his deathbed. Was his conversion genuine, or was it a brilliant political move? What's clear is that Constantine didn't just adopt Christianity, he reshaped it. His influence transformed a persecuted faith into the official religion of the Roman Empire, setting the stage for the church to become a dominant force in politics, culture, and spirituality. But at what cost? As we continue, we'll uncover the lasting consequences of Constantine's decisions and how they shaped the Catholic Church as we know it today. Internal conflicts and political power. With Christianity now firmly tied to the Roman Empire, the Church's journey was far from smooth. In fact, its new position of power brought with it challenges that would test its unity and integrity. As the Church grew, so did the tensions within it, revealing a side of its history rarely discussed. One of the most striking examples is the Western Schism, a period where not one, but up to 3 individuals simultaneously claimed to be the legitimate pope. These popes were backed by different political factions, each vying for control over the church. This wasn't just a spiritual crisis, it was a political battle. Imagine the confusion among believers, trying to discern who truly represented their faith. This power struggle, known as the Three Popes Crisis, highlighted the church's human side. Its leaders were not immune to ambition, rivalry, and the thirst for authority. But these conflicts weren't limited to leadership disputes. Doctrinal disagreements also plagued the church, as councils like Nicaea and others attempted to unify Christian beliefs. Not everyone accepted the decisions. Those who resisted were labeled heretics, often facing exile or even execution. The same church that had once been persecuted by the Roman Empire now found itself silencing dissenters in its ranks. And yet, the stakes weren't just spiritual, they were deeply political. By aligning with the Roman Empire, the church gained unprecedented influence, but also became entangled in its power struggles. Popes and bishops weren't just spiritual leaders, they were political players, negotiating alliances, managing territories, and even leading armies. The lines between faith and politics blurred, creating a complex dynamic that shaped the church's identity. One critical factor was Rome itself. As the capital of the empire, Rome was a symbol of universal power. Establishing the church's headquarters there wasn't just a spiritual decision, it was a strategic move. By rooting itself in the heart of the empire, the church solidified its claim to authority. But this centralization of power also led to corruption and infighting, as leaders vied for dominance. Think about the paradox here. A faith built on humility and service was now deeply intertwined with the pursuit of power. How did the church reconcile these contradictions? Could its leaders maintain their spiritual mission while navigating the treacherous waters of politics? These internal conflicts didn't destroy the church, but they left a lasting impact. They revealed the human side of an institution often viewed as divine, an institution shaped by ambition, rivalry, and the complexities of power. As we continue, we'll explore how the church balanced these challenges and what it meant for its future as a global force. Conclusion: the story of the Catholic Church is one of resilience, ambition, and faith, but it's also one of conflict, compromise, and human imperfection. From its humble beginnings as a persecuted community to its rise as a powerful institution intertwined with the Roman Empire, the Church's journey has been anything but straightforward. What makes this story so compelling is the paradox at its heart: a divine mission carried out by flawed human hands. The decisions made over centuries, some inspired by faith, others driven by power, shaped not only the Church but the world itself. So, what do we make of this history? Does it challenge your view of the Church, or deepen your appreciation for its complexity? Perhaps it's both. The Catholic Church, with all its struggles and triumphs, reminds us that even the most powerful institutions are built by people like you and me, seeking to make sense of the divine in a complicated, ever-changing world. Now that you know this story, what do you believe? Is the Church more divine, more human, or a mixture of both? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more explorations of history, faith, and the mysteries that continue to shape our lives.